I was recruited by the CIA out of college, and they offered me the job, but I had to do a background check, and that takes 9 months in that world. So I went and took a fellowship in Taiwan. But the other thing I did was I finally joined a band. Having spent time in Taiwan doing rock band things, the CIA is going to find out about that. And I had a local girlfriend, and probably they don't want somebody that's doing rock band things with locals handling state secrets. So they rescinded their offer.
By the way, you can't blame them. I mean, totally fair.
It was the right decision. I totally respect it. And in retrospect, I'm glad that they did. At that point in time, I realized if 90% of America's millionaires made or keep their money in real estate, well, that's the industry I should get into. I can be the guy in Cincinnati that grows a business bigger than himself that he can ultimately step out of.
I love it. I'm so glad the CIA had no use for you. Thank you. What if I told you that there's a group of humans that live a life by design, and you could be one of them? Friends, I would be telling you the absolute truth. You see, in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, Gary Keller lays out an idea that if you want to, you can build a business going through a series of levels, and you can get to the 7th level. At that level, the business continues to run and grow without you being involved on a day-to-day basis. Very, very, very few people ever get there. Today, you are going to hear from a gentleman who has. His team does over 600 units year in and year out for over $5 million in GCI. And get this, friends, he lives 2,000 miles away from the team as it does it. They have over 40 real estate agents, and they are humming. I am talking about Peter Chabris. He is going to tell you exactly how to run your business, how to grow your business, and how to set up your business so you can live at the 7th level. Sit back and buckle up. This is Peter Chabris. And I am joined by a longtime friend, Peter Chabris. Peter, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, Jason. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thanks for doing this with us.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
So I ask everyone the same question, man. How did you get into the greatest industry in the world?
So I was in technology through the .com and thereafter. I was a product manager in that world. And back then I was much stronger. I lifted a lot. I played bass in a funk band, and I was at a .com startup. So I was on my keyboard 12, 14 hours a day.
Okay,
and I blew out my arms.
Stop the tape. Wait a second, dude. You can't drop I was in a funk band, and I'm a technologist, and I used to pump iron and not get some follow-up questions.
Okay.
What was the name of the band?
Groove Zone.
The Groove Zone.
The Groove Zone. Yes, sir.
Playing bass in a funk band.
Well, here's where it's really good. I was recruited by the CIA out of college, and they offered me the job, but I had to do a background check, and that takes 9 months in that world. So I went and took a fellowship in Taiwan, and I worked for a local newspaper as a business reporter. But the other thing I did was I finally joined a band because I'd always wanted to. And so we played at Taiwan Woodstock. We were like the last shitty band on the last day to play.
It's not going to get any better than this. Gang, you should all tune out now. That's the high point of the MREA podcast. That's unbelievable. So how do you end up in the technology business?
So I was fluent in Mandarin, and having spent time in Taiwan doing rock band things, the CIA is going to find out about that. And I had a local girlfriend, and probably they don't want somebody that's doing rock band things with locals handling state secrets. So they rescinded their offer.
By the way, you can't blame them. I mean, totally fair.
It was the right decision. I totally respect it. And in retrospect, I'm glad that they did, because I would not have been a great government employee. And so short version. So I worked for the contractors that worked for the Defense Department, and the same thing happened. I got to a certain level where I needed security clearance. I couldn't secure the security clearance. And so I just had to go in a different direction. At that point in time, the Department of Defense was its budget was being reduced by the Clinton administration. And so a lot of these defense contractors had assets, satellites. The Defense Department wasn't using them. And they use these satellites to transfer this wild new technology called Internet Protocol around the world. And so all these defense contractors started getting into IP. Internet Protocol. And that was the beginning of the .com world. So I switched into tech in the front end of the .com bubble.
So you're crushing it. .com is happening. The bubble is real. It pops in 2001. What changes?
Well, two things. One, I was on disability. because I had blown out my arms. And during disability, I read this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And at that point in time, I realized I could never work for anybody ever again. And that if 90% of America's millionaires made or keep their money in real estate, well, that's the industry I should get into. So I was on disability. I met a girl. She wound up being my wife. And we decided to move somewhere. I lived in DC at the time. And we decided to move to Cincinnati, where I was going to be a real estate developer, where we both had some family. There was an area of town in DC that was just beginning to gentrify. I had just come from DC, where this area called Adams Morgan had exploded. I thought I could be part of this new renaissance for this area in Cincinnati called Over the Rhine. So I bought shells, turned them into condos to sell, and I was 5 years too soon. And I got licensed really just so I would lose less money on my projects.
So when you say you were 5 years too soon, you had the nicest product in an area that hadn't hit yet.
The demand for what I was building wasn't there. And between that and my arrogance and ignorance of thinking I didn't need help doing these projects, I got my ass kicked. So I got licensed. We had no money. And the thing about real estate development, even when you're good at it, is that it's feast or famine with your income. And we didn't have enough money in the bank to handle the famine parts. And I figured out when I got licensed, I can get paid in 3 weeks because you could close a deal easily in 3 weeks back then. And so I switched gears and started selling real estate.
Man, what happens next?
So in 2005, 2006, I was, a top producer selling a couple deals every month, getting some awards, cashing some checks. And I was in Barnes & Noble looking for inspiration in the business section. And there was this red book. It was called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I bought it. And I think I read it in maybe 4 or 5 days twice. It all made sense. And I thought, I can be the guy. Like, I can be the guy in Cincinnati that grows a business bigger than himself that he can ultimately step out of.
By the way, gang, if you're new to the show, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcast, the namesake for the show is The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It was a book. It is a book written by Gary Keller, Jay Papasan, and may he rest in peace, Dave Jenks, where it lays out this idea. Well, hell, Peter, I'll let you say. What's the idea that it laid out?
The idea is that you can own a business that nets $1 million without being active in it. But really the idea that matters from that book, Jason, is that it taught real estate agents to stop thinking like salespeople and start thinking like business people. And that shot was heard around the world in our industry. And
it connected with you, it sounds like, on a visceral level.
Visceral. That's the best word to describe the way I responded to that. Yeah. So I was all in, right? And I started hiring and growing and thinking immediately around how do I build a machine? Now, full transparency, a lot of it was driven by the ego of having people, right? But there was still aspiration to own a business because that's what I wanted. I wanted to own a business and I wanted to own, the ancillary passive income opportunities that come with having a strong cash flowing business.
So this is 06.
06. Yes, sir.
I have the benefit, and so do we all, of knowing what happened 2 years later.
Yeah, that was a great run, wasn't it?
So you get this thing going, you're getting a little traction, then the world changes.
Yeah. I have done several really smart things, maybe like on one handful. One of the things that I did was I tried to build an MREA team at my local independent brokerage, and they would not let me have my cell phone number on my sign. And so if they weren't going to allow me to do that, I was never going to be able to build what I was trying to build in that environment. It was not designed or built for entrepreneurs.
Oh my gosh, wait a second. So you read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. You're not at Keller Williams. You're at an independent and you read it, and you're going to go run that play at that independent.
Yes, sir. That did not work very well.
Yeah, because I forget, but I think it's in the first section. He says if it's not your brand, it can't be your business, and makes the argument that you need to be in control of your leads.
100%. 100%. And you really need to be in a capping model of some kind if you're going to build a true real estate sales machine, which is what I was interested in being in. So some Keller Williams agent took the listing next to me. I was furious, and he's pulling his sold sign out of the ground, and he said, "You ought to look at Keller Williams." I said, "Okay, I'll do it. Who do I talk to?" And so I signed up, and that's the big recruiting process for me.
Love it. Dude, by the way, that's the big recruiting process for all of us, right? Which is someone introduced you to something that they believe in. And that can happen in any company USA. So I have the benefit of foresight now because I can look back.
Yeah.
All these years later, you're now running a 7th level business. So for our friends out there that haven't read the book yet, can you explain this concept of levels and then what 7th level means?
Yeah. That's a great question. The concept of 7th level is that you are no longer a salesperson. You are now a business owner. As the business owner, you are no longer actively involved in the operation of the business, but continue to enjoy distributions from it. That would be so-called level 7. Level 1 is, I'm an army of one. I do everything. I'm a sales guy, right? The different so-called levels are just different iterations on the path to complete business ownership. And it should be explicitly stated, every single level has its virtues for wherever you show up in your life and how you want to live it and how you want to organize your time and your expenses and your aspirations and your appetite.
Well, you looked up and said, I want to be 7th level. I want to live on that level. Why was that so important to you and so refreshing when you read it?
It wasn't refreshing. It was inspiring because I didn't even think it was possible. The idea that you could be in real estate sales and own a business was a radical idea to me. And I knew real estate was where I wanted to be. But after my failures in development, I made enough money on the last deal to make up for all the losses on the previous ones and, got my ass kicked, to your point, and got my MBA in the School of Hard Knocks. So it wasn't invaluable. It was actually priceless. But I still had nothing to show for it, right? And so the idea that I wasn't a failure, that I could do the things that I wanted to do in this space was inspiring. And then, full transparency, the market collapsed and the Great Recession happened and nobody was going to hire a guy who had been real estate sales for 3 or 4 years. Like, I didn't have any options. Like, the boat was burned for me. I had to go. And so that was when the full commitment happened to building a true real estate sales business.
Before we shift to the model, I have 2 more questions. At the time that you read it, had you set a time frame in your mind of when you wanted to be at this 7th level?
Like immediately is what I was. Yeah, immediately. No, I mean, I just knew that was where I was going. I didn't know how I was going to get there. I tried it locally. It didn't work. I switched to KW and I just thought it was crazy. At KW, all this stuff was provided, all these playbooks, all this information, and everybody was willing to share it. Like, truly, it took me 2 years to realize people here weren't crazy. This was just how it worked, and we just have to pay it forward. And there was a book called Internet Lead Generation that was published right before the Great Recession, and I thought this was like gold. I couldn't believe this thing was in print and available. So I just implemented the whole thing wholesale. Thank God. Because I didn't really have a sphere and I didn't like to talk to people very much back then. And the point of all this was we got that going just in time for the Great Recession. And so we were able to grow. We were growing as the market was contracting. And Tony DiCello did a shift tour. And I was the local guy to talk about internet leads on his shift tour when he came to the Ohio Valley region. And afterwards, I asked him to coach me and he said no. And I kept asking to coach me and he said no. And apparently I asked so many times over such a long period of time that he called Linda McKissick, who owns the region, and said, who the hell is this guy that keeps asking me to coach him? And apparently she said, hey, do me a favor, Tony, take him as a client. I need a hit. Like the OVR needs a story. And so the reason I'm on this with you right now is because of my wife and because of Tony DiCello.
Friends, if you're at a different company, you're not sure, Tony DiCello is a part of MAPS Coaching. MAPS Coaching is the coaching arm of Keller Williams. Forgetting Tony for a second, because he's just known as Coach, by the way. That's how synonymous with that movement he was. Yeah. Why coaching for you? Why did coaching make such an impact in your life?
You know, Jason, I was such a mess from the neck up. I had so much bad programming in my head. It's a wonder I got to the point where I was even on his radar. It was just sheer obstinance that got me to the point where I had enough production that I mattered enough for him to take my call, right? And so the power of coaching, first and foremost, for me was he cleaned up all that horrible thinking in my head. He provided accountability. But the thing that I think mattered the most was he believed in a better version of me than I did.
Wow.
And I'm choking up a little bit here.
Me too, brother.
He would not stop fighting for that better version when I was ready to give up on it. And when you have someone like that in your life at any stage, wherever it shows up, that is the most transformational relationship you can come across. And I was lucky, blessed, whatever you want to call it, to have had him in my life in a time when I needed him desperately. Changed my life.
Man, I love that. All right. So we get coaching. So I want to get into this now because fast forward to today.
Yes, sir.
The interesting things about you, one of them, you don't live in the Cincinnati market any longer, yet the team, 600 plus units, $5 million in GCI plus.
Yes, sir.
You make your home across the country today.
Yes, sir.
Why?
Well, during COVID, we rented a house with another family for 6 weeks while the kids were online in Breckenridge, Colorado, and went skiing every day. And I realized I need to live in the mountains, and it needs to happen as soon as I can finish meeting all my commitments in Cincinnati. And my last commitment was getting my son to graduate from high school. So that was going to be in 5 years. And so, as Gary says, you can be anywhere in 5 years. So we just worked backwards what needs to happen over the next 5 years, such that, Jason, this is really important. I couldn't just leave the business. I had to leave the business because in 5 years, I was going to be 52. I'm 52 now. I had to leave the business in a way such that it continued to grow in my absence because I'm too young for the business to start dying now. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. That's actually the model we're going to unpack. So, gang, you don't have to take the notes. I'm taking the notes. If you're on the treadmill, or someone sent me a photo the other day, Peter, of them running outside and said, "This is my treadmill." So I love that. But if
awesome.
You're doing it, you don't have to write it down. I'm writing it down. If you don't get the notes, they come out every Thursday as a PDF in an email that we send. Go to MREAnotes.com. That's MREAnotes.com. Peter, tell me exactly how to build the business so it continues to grow even when you're not there.
Can I answer that two different ways, Jason? Okay, the first one is this. What agents who are building sales teams don't understand is they actually play 5 different roles. There's 5 roles you have to replace when you pull yourself out of the business. The first one that typically gets replaced is the director of operations, right? The operational person. That's the easiest. The second one is the person that handles the marketing. Then it gets a little bit more challenging. The third one is the person that is responsible for the day-to-day production of the company, the so-called director of sales. The fourth one is the individual responsible for growing the business through talent, director of growth. Director of sales is responsible for productivity per person. Director of growth is responsible for the number of people in the company. And then the final one is the CEO. So what most agents don't understand is it takes 5 people to replace them if they have a team of any scale. Now, in Cincinnati, we're psyched because at the Chabris Group, our average sales price will finally cross the $300,000 mark this year.
Our friends in California, they have grins ear to ear right now. Okay, so let's go through this list. You said the first 2 are the quote unquote easier ones, the DOO and your marketing folks. What's most important about those roles when you're no longer present?
Your director of operations cannot be a typical behavioral style. Let me qualify this statement. My experience, Jason, is building a company large enough to sustain my lifestyle with an average sales price that's 25% less than than America's average sales price, more than 20% less. And so we need scale, we need volume to do what we're going to do. So we have multiple administrative personnel servicing this business. The director of operations must be a leader. It cannot be an administrator. It's an administrator it's a leader that also gravitates towards the the administrative side of the business.
This makes perfect sense to me. Okay. You know, as you're describing this, I had written them as a list, 1, 2, 3, but I'm rethinking it to the way that Gary always draws things, which is one circle with your name and then 5 circles under it. And these are the humans that report to you. And ultimately, this runs that business. These are kind of the key people. And then there's going to have staff and systems underneath them. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the DOO must be a leader.
Yes.
Talk to me about marketing. What's important there?
When it comes to marketing, that is ultimately the least important for the Chabris Group because we are such we are staff intensive. When you talk about expense structure, our staff number is twice the MREA benchmark. And so our marketing budget is very lean. The majority of what we do is offensive lead generation and Sphere. So there's not a lot of paying for leads. It's primarily activity based.
Got it. Talk to me about your director of sales.
Director of sales responsibility. There's only 2 ways that a real estate sales business can grow its income. Grow. The first one is productivity per person, and the second one is the number of people producing. Those are the only 2 levers you have. So the director of sales responsibility is to push productivity per person, and that individual is primarily responsible for the culture of productivity. And that's the second framework I want to come back to, if that's okay with you.
No problem. Then let's go to director of growth.
Director of growth is recruiting, right? So I spent a tour of duty as a launch OP and learned a lot about growth and a lot about recruiting. And the director of growth's responsibility is to identify and recruit talent. For us to do what we do, we need a lot of scale, which means we need a lot of agents, which means that there is natural attrition, just like a market center or franchise or brokerage for those that are at Keller Williams. And so you have to continue to recruit because people will leave. Either they are not on standard or their life changes. And when you have a standard that you enforce, you're going to see a higher attrition rate than you will for a market center or for a typical real estate brokerage or franchise.
How many agents do you like to have on the team at all times?
As many as will produce.
Wow, that's a big question. Okay, how many do you got today?
We have 41 today.
So there's another subsection of the world listening right now that says, why don't you just have 7 people, but each of them do 50 deals a year?
So I love that question. And the way I explained this was for years, Jason, we were like Navy SEAL Team 6. I actually ran a 45% profit margin running SEAL Team 6. Now, I did wind up getting heart surgery in the process, so it may not have been the best for me, but we did it for 2 years straight. I think you said in one of our masterminds, you said there's no perfect business model, so you may as well pick your problems.
That's right.
And that resonated with me. And so if each business model has its problems and I want to live in the mountains in 5 years, then I need to pick problems that are going to be, that I like to solve, that I can solve remotely, that the person that ultimately replaced me as CEO can also solve intuitively. Make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
So when we were small but mighty, it was great, except that there's 2 problems with it. The first one is if somebody leaves, one of your super awesome producers leaves, it can really hamstring the organization. And even if they leave just because they're the trailing spouse, right? Or they burn out, or they have an illness, or they got to take care of a parent that's getting sick. Like it's not that they leave you because they don't like you. They just leave because life happens. Replacing that individual can be very challenging. The second thing that can happen with SEAL Team 6 is sometimes you can get a little entitlement starts getting fostered in your players, and they can hold you hostage. And I've experienced both of those things. And so when I decide what kind of problems do I like to solve, I don't particularly appreciate being held hostage. And I don't like surprises that set me back 10, 15, 20% of my revenue. The other thing about small but mighty sales team, which is what you're talking about, is that it requires a really strong leader in deep relationships with the people, because these are all highly talented people. They're constantly getting solicited and they see opportunity as well. And they're great to be in relationship with, but if ultimately I'm not going to be there, I may not be able to maintain the right relationship from 1,600 miles away.
It's spot on. Gary Keller, he told me, he said that talented people, a lot of them are going to spell love Time. And
sure.
They're going to want yours. And if you're going to be 2,000 miles away, sure, you could figure it out. But in life, you get to pick your problems.
Yeah. And I just want to put an asterisk on this. I'm not saying that the people that I'm in working relationship with now are not talented. but is a different kind of relationship.
100%. I've had the pleasure in preparing for this. I had the pleasure of talking to some of the folks in your organization. And man, you got an incredible group of humans there.
Oh, they're phenomenal. Phenomenal people. What
blew me away in the conversations that I was having, this conversation around culture. And Gary defined culture the other day. He said, if you're not careful, culture becomes really esoteric and it's kind of scoffed and squishy. He said, think of it like this, Jason. He said, culture is simply the way things get done around here.
I like that.
100%. And he said, in the absence of a culture, you get a default culture, and a default culture is usually dysfunctional.
So can we go here?
Please.
So the first framework was the people that you need to replace yourself, right? The second framework is what I call culture of productivity. So in the last 3 pages of the MREA, in the organizational section, organizational model, it talks about leadership D and business D. And the idea is that leaders of sales organizations bring their intrinsic drive to the company, like that sales hustle that made them top producers. Business D is the systems, models, tools, technology that also drive the company forward. And Gary will say, when the best companies have both. And I believe that to be true. The missing piece for us was that we did not have a cultural D. There was not and that was the piece that was missing, because if you think about it, especially when you're dealing with a low average sales price like ours, there's no margin for error and there's no margin for inefficiencies, right? We have to have a marketing thin budget for this thing to work. And so everybody needs to produce. This is not a lead receiving business. This is a lead generation business. So there needs to be a level of intensity in the organization, in the culture of the company. In fact, if you think about, when you look at the KPA for mega agent, what's the number one behavior? It's actually a modifier, and the modifier is intensity. So if the mega agent brings with him this high intensity that pushes all this production, that intensity has to be transferred from the mega agent's shoulders and hardwired into the organization itself. That's the culture of productivity.
Well, how the hell do you do that?
There's 3 frameworks. The first one is your onboarding. That 30, 60, 90 is critical. The way you let people treat you in the first 90 days is how they're going to treat you the rest of the relationship, right?
Sure.
So you have to cast a certain kind of relationship in the first 90 days and indoctrinate them into the culture of the company. And I don't use the word indoctrinate in a negative fashion. I mean it actually in a positive way, because when people buy into, understand, and value the and win with the values of the company, the values of the culture of productivity, like they get it. And their life goes faster, their income gets bigger, and they start controlling more of their lives than they thought was possible.
Okay, so walk me through. And friends, if you're new to the program, 30, 60, 90 is the first 30 days, then the next 30 days, then the next 30 days. So don't take me through all of it, but give me some of the high points. What matters in the first 30 days the most?
What matters in the first 30 days that they have demonstrated they have the skills that deliver core competency in their 20%, right?
What is the 20%?
20% is generating a lead, converting it, signing it, serving it. That's it. That's all. Can you generate a lead? Can you convert it? Can you sign it? That's the only thing we train on. We train on.
You're not expecting them to have that on day one. You're just going to train on only those things fanatically for the first 30 days.
We train on for the first 90 days, but it's most intensive in the first 30 days. Yes, sir.
Take me through the list one more time. I need skills.
Sales skills, acquisition, which primarily is communication skills. And it is pipeline development and lead generation. That's really all we do. A proper 30, 60, 90, in the last 30 days, the agent is on standard for whatever the production standard is. The production standard of the Chabris Group is book 4 appointments with new prospective clients.
Hang on, go slow. Book 4 appointments with prospective
clients.
What does that mean?
That means you're meeting with somebody for the first time to talk about representation, and it's a signable opportunity. You've qualified them, and it's a signable opportunity.
And is that on a weekly basis?
4 per month, excuse me.
4 per month. So once a week, I'm going to have a meeting with someone who ultimately could sign on the line that is dotted.
That's correct.
Okay, what's the next standard?
Of those 4, you got to sign 2 of them, which, I mean,
you got to play 50% ball with y'all? That seems...
Which is easy.
Okay, convince me.
Well, I'll pull up Sisu if you want to see it. Our conversion rate on the buy side is 85%, and on the list side, it's 80%.
Okay, and are these leads, are they coming out of something warm? Are they coming out of a database that you've curated? Or are they just walking up to people in Starbucks and saying, hey, you want to have a meeting? Like, because if you're going to go 50%, there has to have been some framing of this along the way.
50% conversion rate from kept to signed? Oh, I feel like gosh, Jason, I don't mean to disagree with you in front of other people, but I feel...
By the way, disagree with me in front of the largest audience in all of real estate. Go ahead.
I truly believe that if your agent understands how to communicate their value and they're following a presentation structure, format, system that pre-handles objections, they should sign a high percentage of the time. In fact, you like that?
Man, you just got me there, because I got news for you. If you don't have those things, you're not batting 50%. The mega agent's going to go out and bat 80%. Everyone else on the team is going to be 20% at best.
Well, the funny thing is our company, and remember, there are over 40 producing agents at our company. Our company's average is over 80%.
I love that. Okay, so number 1, I'm going to book at least an appointment a week with someone that can sign. Number 2, 2 of them are going to sign. What's the third standard?
Sell a house.
Put 1 deal closed.
Yeah. And by the way, our minimum production standard is 12, but the average productivity per person at the company is 15.5. So we're not managing to the minimum here. We just know that if you can't sell 12 houses a year with us, we're not the right model for how you're going to succeed in real estate. And so that's just a way for us to keep people that can win with us.
It stands out to me that these 3 things are all lag measures. Are you tracking any lead measures around this?
Well, I think appointments set, kept, and signed are all, those to me, I consider lead indicators. Pending sales and closed sales are lag indicators. Contacts...
That's what I'm getting at, because if you say to me, Jay, we start tracking at how many appointments they set, to me, that's the lag of the lead, which is how many minutes did you spend doing it? How many contacts did you make?
So I can, yes. I'll answer your question the way you want it answered. So we put pressure on 4 per month. If someone isn't at 4 per month, then we apply pressure to conversations. Yes, we track conversations, but because it's so subjective and because it happens at different times of the day, we put the pressure on appointments booked.
Love it. All right. That makes sense to me. Okay. Let me ask you this. I miss this standard. How many months do I get to miss it for? And what does the protocol look like the first time I do miss it?
It's a great question. I could talk about this all day long. It's my favorite conversation. If you miss the standard over the course of a month, we're having conversations. Well, actually, we're having conversations during the month if you're lagging the standard. There's no surprise at the end of the month if we're like, hey, this isn't working out. You got to do something differently this month. It's easy for me to say, Jason, like, well, we're hardcore. You don't hit it that month, you're on a PIP immediately. But it doesn't work like that, because this is life and people, and we all have things that happen in our lives. And so there's some degree of grace, right?
I know your heart. I know that never would have been the case.
No. Well, I think there probably was a time when I was a little more draconian, but I've grown up. If somebody is not present and they're not doing the things and they're not taking it seriously, yeah, we might bring out a PIP immediately after the end of the first month that someone's not on standard.
What's a PIP?
Performance Improvement Plan. It's a short-term, high-focus reset for the agent to decide through their own actions if they want to get back in the game or get off the team.
What would be in a PIP? What does it look like? Is it a sheet of paper? Is it a commitment? Do we build it together? Are you handing me a new set of rules? What's a PIP?
It is a sheet of paper where we identify the standards that were not kept. And then we identify the number of activities or benchmarks over the next 30 days. And if necessary, over the following 30 days, if they're really behind. But the reality is most people, we all have mistakes. We all have a bad month. We all have things that happen in our lives. If we're going 2 months without hitting standard, that's when we're pulling out a PIP, generally speaking.
And are you mandating, which is an interesting word in a 1099 contractor industry, but are you holding to a standard of lead gen as a time frame per day?
Yes.
So do you have dual career agents as well on the team? Okay.
Absolutely
so everyone's working in full-time real estate. What do the days look like?
So half hour of role play, 4 days a week.
Is that in the morning?
Yeah.
Okay, so what time do you all start?
When we were sales team 6, we started at 8 and the listing agent started at 7:30. Now at scale, we start at 9. Role play is for half an hour.
Why do you start your day with role play? Matter of fact, these people are talking to people all day. Why do they even have to do role play?
If you want to be excellent, you've got to practice excellence, right? If you think about Tiger Woods, Tom Brady, all of the greats, they don't just go to the field, on the football field on Sunday and play the best football there is. Like, they practice relentlessly all week long. They're either in the watching film, or they're practicing plays with their teammates, or they're training, right? Like, if you want to be the best, be the best. Play like you want to be the best. Behave like you want to be the best. And that means skilling up.
Love that. All right. So the 4 days a week.
4 days a week of role play for 30 minutes, followed by 2 hours of lead gen each day.
And are you picking the topic for role play, or is everyone just getting in and it's always the same, which is connect with people and drive to appointment?
Yeah. So we have a 13-week role play cycle, like every quarter. And so we go through that role play cycle. In that cycle are 2 weeks where if there's some market of the moment event, we can specifically train around that language, right?
So every 13 days, this cycle is going to restart?
Every 13 weeks, the cycle resets. So once a quarter, we'll start the role play over again.
Would you please walk me through some of the most important pieces of the cycle, or the cycle itself?
Of course. The very first thing our agents learn is how to call your sphere for the first time without making it icky.
Man, how do you do that?
Well, that's the first dialogue that we teach is how to call your sphere without having them want to avoid your phone call the next time you call them, right? So a lot of agents don't call their sphere. The ones that do it wrong and then don't do it again. It's important that you have permission to work real estate into the relationship in a way that still primarily honors the relationship you have with somebody from your sphere and takes the pressure off of them to use you directly. And when you do those two things right, you crank on referrals, as long as you're consistently marketing to and communicating with them, which is what we do.
Love it. All right. What else? You have clear. What's the next week?
Internet lead dialogue, right? How to have a conversation with a stranger that registered on your website about real estate. We do open house. We have an open house playbook that we run. Sign call conversion, Google local service conversion skills. And then we move into the buyer presentation, because most agents usually start on that side of things. It's easier. So we teach them the TCG buyer consultation, which is lethal. We teach them how to present and sign the buyer broker agreement. We teach them how to handle objections around commission and or transaction processing charges. We work on things like closes, right? Like the 10 closes that you'll see, and I believe it was Shift. And we'll do and we'll go at that point in time into situational stuff. What's going on in the market at the moment?
Everything you're saying, like I'm going to go back and listen to this, right? Well, I'm doing the intro and the outro, and I know what I'm going to already hear. Everything you're saying, you've removed all of the bullshit.
Yes.
I mean, you are hyper specific on creating a productivity driven environment, and you've stripped everything else out.
That's the perfect language, because there's no margin for inefficiency or bullshit in a 7th level business functioning on a $300,000 sales price.
Man, that is one big sentence. All right, I got this. This makes perfect sense to me. The only role that we didn't talk about, and I wanted to save it for last, is the CEO.
Yeah.
And because you lay out this business, but dude, you're kind of a mad scientist, because the only reason you're getting passionate about telling me about it is because you believe in it, which means you had a hand in creating it.
Yes,
How
sir.
does a founder work side by side with a CEO? And you've had to grow, man. How have you done that?
Yes, I had to grow. One of the things that I believe is one of my strengths is that I am constantly looking to be better. And I'm constantly looking to evolve. And that has served me well, because I've never gotten complacent in where I was in my journey. That being said, hiring somebody to run your business requires a high level of leadership skills. It requires a really strong interpersonal relationship. It requires mutual trust. Dare I say love between you and the other individual. And I think it also requires a degree of humility, because we have to understand, yes, I'm the founder of the business. Yes, I'm the guy that got us most of the way that we are, or to a point. Now, James, who is the CEO, he was right there with me when we made this transfer from SEAL Team 6 to, well, we swung all the way over to the People's Liberation Army of China, and that was a show. So we figured out our new mojo somewhere in the middle. But he was with me through that journey, and he was on the leadership team when we made this switch. And so at this point, he understands the machine better than I do. And so let me get back to humility. You have to understand that just because we got this thing where it is doesn't mean we're now the best leader for the company. And that requires a degree of humility, and it requires a degree of trust in the individual that is. And James is. James is a better operator of the company the way it is today than I could be.
That's a huge sentence, man. So
it's true.
We read this book, a CEO does three things. And ultimately, the book said, number one, they help set the vision for the company and make sure everyone understands it. Number two, they make sure the right butts are in all the right seats and the wrong ones are removed from the organization.
Yes.
And number three, they keep an eye and make sure this thing makes money and hits its goals.
That's right.
Would you say those are the three things?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, look, Jason, James has been in this role for 3 years, right? I've been in this role for 23 years. Well, not quite that long. Let's say 19 years I've been doing this. So I just have a deeper level of experience. So I'm still riding shotgun to his executive role, right?
Of course.
So yes, he's responsible for those three things. I'm kind of like sitting here on his shoulder, talking him through the week to week decisions he has to make along the way. But yeah, that's his responsibility. I mean, he's learning also. He's learning where to delegate and let go. So he's just holding on to those three things. So, but yeah, absolutely.
I love it, man. All right, I got two more questions for you.
Yes, sir.
When you think about the future, is there anything that scares you? If this thing is going to implode, if this isn't going to work out, what's going to be the reason, or what's the thing that you wake up at 2 a.m. thinking about?
The only thing that makes me concerned about the longevity of the company is, what does the transition of power from James to the next person look like? And I don't believe that transfer happens anytime soon, but I do know that James will at some point in time want to do something else and will have earned the right to do it. And when that happens, I want to make sure that all the people that we've made all these commitments to, right? Staff, agents, affiliated business, all these people we've made commitments to, I want to make sure that we don't stop delivering on the commitments that we've made.
I love that. All right, last question. You are living a life by design. You're living where you wanted to live. You're running the business you wanted to run.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting you haven't always done that, but has this experience,
do
you think you could have done it earlier? Meaning, have you been as purposeful about a life by design the entire time? And you've now crossed a bridge that a handful of people will ever cross, which is I hit the 7th level and I'm living the life that I want to live. A lot of people are stuck because they truly believe that that's not attainable.
Yeah. Well, if I can be the guy that says you can do it on a $300,000 sales price, I would love to be that guy to say, yes, it can be done. It requires, and it can be done faster. You haven't asked me what I do with my time. This is not a plug, and it may sound like it, but it's not intended to. But the thing I do now to keep current, and because it's still fun, is I help stuck mega agents, just coach them through getting out of the messy middle and starting to get this thing to run like a business.
Gang, if you're listening to this and this sounds like a life that you want and you do want to get over that bridge, then how can they reach you, brother? Because you're a coach who lives to coach.
Yeah. It's like consulting because I've done it, right?
So how do they reach you?
Just text me, 513-703-7000.
You just gave your cell phone out on the podcast that gets over 100,000 downloads a month?
Well, can we edit that out and
no
we'll do
chance.
an email?
It's in. It's so good. Yeah, I'm not editing it out. I'm leaving it in.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. We're going to test how many people actually download it and listen to it by the number of texts I get. We're going to give you a little feedback.
I'm just telling you, gang, you just got the golden ticket dropped in your lap. I love it, man. I love everything you're doing for the industry. I was blown away when I talked to the people on your team who told me how supported they feel. I had a limiting belief, man. I thought I was going to start calling them and they weren't going to kind of know who you were. They were going to know who your CEO was. They weren't
Yeah.
really going to know what you stand for. They weren't going to know your story. I found the complete opposite. I also found a culture of people who all talked about helping each other. And if you've been purposeful about that, then bless you. If you haven't, then you're the recipient of one of the greatest things you could have had.
We have 3 values at our company. The first one's integrity, the second one drive, and the third is teamwork. And we define teamwork as nobody succeeds alone, and we pay it forward. And we believe in that. And if you're not a team player, there's no place for you at our company.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm so glad the CIA had no use for you. Thank you for everything you're doing for the industry, brother. Honored to have you on the program.
Yeah, Jason, this has been such a treat. Thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me share. It gives me goosebumps. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. That is awesome. The fact that he gave his cell phone number out over the air, I absolutely love that journey for him. Everybody text that dude and call that guy. And if you want a coach who's going to change your life, he's the one. Why? Because he understands a productivity-specific environment. Gary Keller just wrote a course on this called Leadership Academy. And what he says is a productivity-specific environment sets the conditions that need to be there to support each person in achieving their highest productivity potential. It's not generic, it's specific. The bottom line is it has to do 2 things. Number 1, determine the productivity value you must provide. Then number 2, run the business to provide it. You see, once you have that, you have the makings of a culture. And in this same course, Gary says that culture is the shared set of values, beliefs, and behaviors that shape how a group of people interact and get things done. Culture is the invisible architecture of every organization. It's, quote, how we do things around here. The success of culture rises or falls at the hands of the leader in charge. In the absence of culture, an organization doesn't become neutral. It becomes chaotic, untrustworthy, and ineffective. Culture will form by design or default, and a default culture is usually dysfunctional. Confusion replaces clarity. What's right becomes what can I get away with? Politics and ego fill the void. Culture is replaced by internal competition and self-preservation. Morale and belonging collapse. Performance becomes transactional. Relationships and brands suffer. Turnover rises, results decline, and the company and its brand are at risk. You want to know the truth, friends? The truth is the success of any business rises and falls at the hands of its leader, based on whether they get culture or don't understand the power of a positive culture created, lived, and protected. Quote, unquote, Gary Keller. That's what Peter Chabris understands. That's why he can sit 2,000 miles away in his mountain of solitude and the business continue to run and the people within it continue to grow. The truth is, friends, any one of us can be at the 7th level. You only have to do 3 things in a very specific order. Number 1, decide that that's where you want to be, and I'm telling you, in 5 years, you can be anywhere you want. Number 2, decide on the culture and the value that you need to provide in order to get the thing that drives the business happening. Everything Peter is doing is designed to create productivity-specific results for the agents on the team. Everything else has been cut out. Number 3, you got to run the business every day to the letter of those 2 things. Because here's what happens. A lot of people do the work for 1 and 2, and I watch them, and then they start to have mission creep every day. And before you know it, they've refilled the business with all the other things that don't really matter. You know what his genius might really be? Eliminating all of the other distractions and focusing on the one thing that has the biggest result to his business. Here's my question for you. What's the one thing that if you get it done makes everything else easier, less important? Someone I know wrote a book on that, and the book is called The One Thing. See, if you're not careful, friends, you wake up and you do everything. Think about it. What matters most? And then double down on that. Go for it and do likewise.